lower on Friday morning in a correction following several days of gains. The May canola contract is down $6.30 at $871.30 per ton. The July contract is down $10.50 at $821.20 per ton. And new crop November is down $7.20 at $686.80. Losses in the Chicago soy complex, Malaysian palm oil, and European rapeseed are weighing on values. However, the May rapeseed contract is higher. Tight canola supplies and dryness across the prairies are underpinning values, but these are being effectively countered by the likelihood of more canola being planted in 2021 than initially anticipated. The Canadian dollar is virtually unchanged on Friday morning, with the loonie at 80.01 US cents. The Canadian Grain Commission says producer deliveries of canola for the week ending April 18th are down about 17% at 377,000 tons. Canola exports are up 41% on the week at more than 154,000 tons, while domestic usage is up 8.5% at over 224,000 tons. Cargill says it will begin construction of a new canola crushing plant in Regina early next year. The $350 million facility should be operational in 2024 with the capacity to crush 1 million tons of canola per year. The United States Department of Agriculture reports 2 private sales of corn and 1 of soybeans. A sale of nearly 136,700 tons of corn was made to Guatemala, with the other sale for 336,000 tons to unknown destinations. A sale of 132,000 tons of soybeans was made to China. Delivery for the 3 is to be made during the coming marketing year. Rounding off prices at the Chicago Board of Trade, soybean futures are lower on Friday morning. The May soybean contract is down 3 cents at $15.30 per bushel. May soy oil is down more than 1/4 cent at 62.25 US cents per pound. May soy meal is down $2.10 at $4.1990 per hundredweight. Corn futures are lower as well on Friday morning, with the May contract down 4 cents at $6.46.5 per bushel. Chicago oats are down, with the May contract losing 4 cents at $3.98.5. Wheat futures are steady to higher on Friday morning. Chicago May is up 1/4 cent at $7.10.5. Kansas City May is up 3 cents at $6.70. And Minneapolis May is up 9.5 cents at $7.18. That's a look at the ICE futures and the Chicago markets for Friday morning, April 23rd. For Markets Farm in Winnipeg, I'm Glenn Halleck.
If you need a tractor that's small but mighty, Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John has just the ticket. The Workmaster 25S subcompact tractor from New Holland. With 25 horsepower, a 3-point hitch, rear PTO, and mid PTO, it handles chores a garden tractor just can't. Plus, this economical tractor gives you deluxe comfort and simple 2-pedal operation that makes it easy to mow, load, dig, grade, and more. Stop by Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John today to learn more about the Workmaster 25S.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Welcome to another episode of the show. A little later on, we're going to be chatting with Dawson Creek Mayor Dale Bumstead. His city is struggling with COVID-19 right now. They have the highest per capita rate of infections of anywhere in the province. So Northern Health announced some measures to hopefully stem the tide on that. So we'll talk about what those are and how the city is dealing with it. But first, the federal budget dropped earlier this week. It was the first one in a couple of years, and our local MP and his Conservative Party have some concerns about it. So I sat down with Bob Zimmer earlier to chat a bit about those concerns and to elaborate on them. So here is that conversation. Bob, thanks so much for joining me on Moose Talks once again.
Good to be here, Dub.
All right, it's been a big week. The first federal budget in 2 years came down. Lots to chew on. We're only going to be able to touch on some of it. But for example, they're going to be running another deficit this year, somewhere in the $350 million range. In general, can you speak to why this budget is, as you put it in an interview you did with Energetic City earlier this week, why this budget is of concern to you?
Yeah, and I think the deficit's a little more than that. I know we're looking at the deficit. We're already at just about 1.3 trillion in total debt. And in the next 5 years, there's going to be another $330 billion added to that amount. So it's really incredible. We're seeing since this current prime minister's been in power, our national debt has more than doubled. So then all the previous prime ministers before him, that's the kind of spending spree he's on. And I've said with different interviews that I've done, it's different if we see a bridge getting built across the Peace and maybe some new lagoons in Puskupi, or you name the infrastructure project. It would at least make sense that some of this money is getting spent, because that's when you spend money, is when the economic downturn is present in a nation, right? But when you see the money going out the door faster than they seem to be able to physically do it, and not see any projects getting done, I get really concerned where the money's going. And then we see, when you look a little deeper down, you see a lot of pet projects, and you see money getting spent that is all on the taxpayer's credit card. They're all our kids and their grandkids are all be responsible for paying it all back, as us as well. And the debt responsibility in that is just enormous, and it's just out of control.
This is a tough one because usually conservatives and liberals are on different sides of this in general on how to spend the nation's money, right? But this is sort of a disaster scenario, might be the wrong word, but it's an interesting time to be living in. So, for example, there's a lot in this budget that appears to be helping people now. For example, the huge investment in childcare, extension of the wage subsidy and rent subsidy. I could go on and on. Are these things you think conservatives, if you were in power, you would also be investing in and just finding different ways to pay for it?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. There are some things in there that, and what it's been said by other news organizations, is that it's something for everybody. It's money given to everybody. But the way in which it's given, I think that's where we differ from the Liberals. The National Daycare Program is something that we've had our own idea on national daycare, and that's to give every parent that has children at home a certain amount of money, so they can either hire a grandparent to take care of their kids, or hire a sibling perhaps, and not be regimented as this Liberal plan is where you have to be part of this national regulated daycare program to get any money. So you're paying that single parent, or sorry, the parents that have a stay-at-home parent as an example, and one works out. They won't benefit from this in any way because they choose to stay home with their kids. They won't see any funds come their way at all unless they put their kids in part of this registered daycare program plan. So I would say I'm supportive of that. We've been supportive of that kind of thing before, but we believe in putting the money in the hands of the parents and let them decide where they want to spend their money on daycare.
Now, speaking of paying for it, one of the things they've said they want to implement to help pay for some of these items anyway is a luxury tax, which would include apparently own vehicles over $100,000 and boats over $250,000. Now, you made an interesting comment. You said a vehicle over $100,000 in some places, a luxury. But here, that's a work truck. So would you be supportive of the Liberals changing maybe how they approach this so that they aren't slapping more taxes on people who live up here who maybe need that truck for work and it isn't a luxury?
Absolutely. I think, when $100,000 is a limit, and, that's understandable in maybe urban Canada, it's more for a luxury item. But when you come up here, a pickup, once you set it up and have it ready to go and you're a backhoe operator or you're a heavy equipment operator somewhere in the bush, you're easily up to $100,000 to pay for that work truck. So, and you mentioned boats too. One thing that's maybe not understood east of British Columbia, maybe unless you're on the East Coast, is that a lot of our boats on our West Coast go to people that work for a living. They're people that have charter businesses on the water that are hardly a luxury. This is part of their business. This is how they make their money and feed their families. And to slap a luxury tax on something like that. It just shows a lack of understanding for, the impacts to some of these communities. It just shows that they don't understand it. If they had some provisos in there where it wasn't somehow including work-related vehicles, then be more interested in it. But right now, it's again, any tax that I see that attacks somebody who's just trying to make a living, and you keep slapping on more and more and more, it bothers me. And I heard an interviewer ask me this week about, we talked about the Peace River Bridge and the fact that there was no line item money in the budget per se to pay for that. And I was asked, well, why doesn't industry pay? And I say, our industry already pays exorbitant amounts of income tax. A lot of money goes to Ottawa that we don't see return. The last thing I want to see is those already heavy contributors, whether you're oil and gas, forestry, agriculture, you name it, is have to pay more for something that should have been built a long time ago.
Now, does that mean you'd be happier seeing a deficit being run like this, maybe even if you guys are in power and you were running a deficit, if the Liberals or the government was investing in infrastructure like the Taylor Bridge, like the Massey Tunnel down south, in any number of infrastructure projects that could be being invested in right now across the country?
Absolutely. I think what I would say would be different if we were in government. There would have been a couple of differences, some key differences. Is the botched COVID rollout, I think, is the biggest problem that this budget is trying to cover. So when you botch something like that and you have to keep, the situation is in crisis right now, as I think you mentioned, that crisis should have been behind us by now, as many nations that have been fully vaccinated or just about there. They're getting back to normal. People are getting back to work. Rather than being into this crisis mode, this prolonged crisis mode that the Prime Minister has, it's the bet he's made by not doing a great job at it. So then you're spending money when you don't have to. And then also, money, like I mentioned before, when the economy has a downturn, then you spend it on projects that once you're out of that downturn, it's going to make us a more productive part of the province, part of the country. A bridge like the Peace River Bridge is something we need. It's a corridor. It's a major corridor from south to the north, even to Alaska and beyond. That's the kind of thing you build to become more productive on the other side of that downturn. So things like that, they're called investments, and I do believe we should be making investments like that. I'm just not seeing them.
Well, finally, I think, at least for me, the most interesting thing you said in that interview you gave earlier this week on Energeticcity.ca, you called this a pre-election budget. This is fascinating to me because it doesn't look like the Liberals are in a position at the moment, if you look at polling, to benefit from an election exactly now. So why do you think this is them setting something up for either the near future or in the fall or something? Is it just the amount of money that's being spent that makes you believe that maybe they're gearing up for a run at the polls?
Absolutely. You don't spend this kind of money unless you're wanting to benefit from it. And I'm saying this as a perspective of watching what the Prime Minister is doing. To me, it's got all the earmarks. You give something to everybody, without a concern of what the bank account says, without seemingly a concern for the future of our kids and the responsibilities to pay off that debt. To me, it's clear. I'd say a better way to answer your question is it might not be a good situation for the Prime Minister to go into election now, but I would say it might be his best chance. It's just going to get worse from here. There's many things that are going on with, many scandals that have happened with this Prime Minister and this government. There's more to come with We. They're being investigated by Elections Canada now on their affiliation with We, and did they break any rules there? Using We as an election arm to get the Prime Minister elected, that kind of thing. That's been investigated right now. So there's, to me, I think the best way to answer that, I think this might be the best chance the Prime Minister has. I think it's, again, only going to get worse for him.
All right, then really quick before we go, I believe the NDP has already said they're going to support this budget, so there's really no chance of it failing at the moment. What are you and the Conservative caucus going to be hammering the Liberals on to get into the budget then that you haven't seen that you'd like to see more of?
Well, I think there's a lot of concerns that we have. Just, I know we're in this crisis point. I'd say, if anything, the most important thing to Canadians right now is to get COVID behind us. And so to do everything we can to get that to happen. So we should be making every effort to get people vaccinated if they want to, making sure that they're available, making sure that we're stemming the influx of these other variants into Canada. That's another thing our leader, Aaron, has just announced this morning. There should be tighter measures. We're seeing Canadians not allowed to go to church, but we're seeing, an influx of people from other countries that are possibly carrying different strains, and it just doesn't make sense. The Prime Minister needs to be consistent. That's what we're pushing back on, is that if we really want to get our lives back to normal in Canada, we need to be doing some serious changes right now in the way things are done. And that's what we're pushing the Prime Minister to do. And then again, I think, record spends, record deficits, record response. Our responsibility, just in terms of interest to pay off our debt obligations, is going to double from 20 billion to 40 billion in the next little while. And our entire healthcare budget is around 40 billion. So just interest on what's being borrowed by this Prime Minister is going to equate to what the total healthcare spend federally is. That should alarm a whole bunch of us. Anyway, bottom line is we need to get back to where we were before and do everything we can to get there.
All right, Bob. Well, we'll have to leave it there. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us today.
Thanks, Doug. Always a pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back with more after this on Moose Talks.
Did you know that Tenacious Detail does interior detailing and paint correction on any size vehicle? That includes airplanes, RVs, boats, semi-trucks, and more. Land or sky, water or fly. We have your transportation looking its best with on-site services, fine lap ceramic coatings for any surface, and fleet pricing available. Tenacious Detail is your go-to for all your cleaning, correction, and protection needs. We also accept all fleet cards, offer pickup and delivery, and evenings and weekends are available upon request. Don't forget to check out our new location, 9504 on 102nd Street. Check us out on Facebook or call 250-263-9335.
Welcome to the DoorDash exclusive. We got that $0 delivery fee. First month delivery fee is free. DoorDash. For the $10 minimum and terms apply.
Mom, we have some pretty exciting news.
And we wanted to tell you before we posted a picture online.
You're pregnant? I knew it. I knew you'd have a pandemic baby. I'm going to be a granny. I have to go call everyone I know.
So, when are we going to tell her we're not pregnant? And that we're talking about our new truck?
9 months.
A truck, pet, RV, or actual baby? Show North Peace Savings and Credit Union your pandemic baby for a chance to win $1,000. Go to moosefm.ca, or you can post your picture to social media with the hashtag NPSCU MyPandemicBaby. Oh, did I mention every Friday we'll pick a weekly winner who will receive a prize worth at least $200 from local businesses. Then the photo with the most votes will win $1,000 cash from North Peace Savings and Credit Union. My Pandemic Baby is presented by North Peace Savings and Credit Union and supported in part by these local businesses:
The Fort St. John Co-op, Desiree Jeanette Notary Public, McNabb's Tire and Auto, and Fort Carpet Cleaning.
Creating a gorgeous oasis in your own backyard with a little help from Walker Greenhouses. Glenn and Kathy are excited to let you know that Walker Greenhouses is now open for the season. Stop in and see their beautiful greenhouses full of everything you need for spring planting and gardening, including plants, planters, hanging baskets, trees, berry bushes, and so much more. Spend more time enjoying your outdoor space this spring and summer with Walker Greenhouses, now open on Highway 29 towards Hudson's Hope.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at Energeticcity.ca.
Welcome back to the program. Now, earlier I sat down with Dawson Creek Mayor Dale Bumstead. They're dealing with a bit of a crisis in terms of COVID-19 right now. They have the highest per capita rate of infection in the province, and they are trying to deal with it. Northern Health also announced earlier this week some measures to hopefully help stem the tide. So we caught up with the mayor to chat a bit about that. Here is that conversation. Mayor Bumstead, thank you for joining us once again on Moose Talks.
Thank you for asking me to join you.
You're very welcome. Now, Dawson Creek in a bit of a crisis right now, I'd say. We found out on Monday from the public health officer that Dawson Creek has the highest per capita rate of COVID-19 infection in the province. Then Northern Health later this week announced that a second outbreak was happening at the Dawson Creek Hospital. That's a lot to happen in 1 week. So I just want to, how concerned are you about this situation as the mayor?
Yeah, honestly, it's been worrisome probably for about 3 or 4 weeks. And, and you start to see the data climbing for the South Peace. And obviously Dawson Creek, as the largest community in the South Peace, it was evident to me that the virus was spreading in our community, unlike anything we'd ever seen in the last year. And so it's very worrisome over the last 3 weeks or so. And so that was where I started to, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, start to begin to reach out to Northern Health and say, look, we need to see if we can find a way to start to deal with it in a proactive way with the vaccination program to help try to curb and slow the spread.
Now we're going to talk about what they've actually done a little later on here, but do you have a sense of how concerned residents of Dawson Creek are, or is this sort of an indication that maybe people aren't taking this as seriously as you would hope?
Honestly, I think it's been tough, right, for everybody. The last year and a bit has really been tough, tiresome, frustrating, aggravating for so many people in terms of not understanding kind of what's going on, and our world is turned upside down in so many ways. So, I don't know what the reason is. We went through the first wave, I use that term, from March through to June. We didn't have a single confirmed case that we had heard about in the South Peace, certainly in Dawson Creek. And it was evident over the last month that it's in our community in a much different way. And I don't know if it's, they talk about all these variants and all that stuff. I'm not an expert by any means in terms of any of this stuff, but I know it was in my community in Dawson Creek in a much different way than we'd ever seen it before, and it was spreading in a much different way. And it was into our RCMP detachment, it was into our fire hall. It got one complete shift of our fire department and into City Hall, into Public Works, into communities. It was impacting our community in a much different way, and so that was a concern to me, because you're talking about, when you start seeing the RCMP and the fire department, now you're not talking public health, you're talking public safety. And so, it was a concern, and I don't know if it was people were acting differently or interacting differently, but this virus that's in our community and has been over the last month or so is different than anything that's been in here in the past year, for sure.
So you haven't heard, Northern Health hasn't indicated to you that, it came from, say, an influx of workers suddenly or some sort of situation like that. It's happened, essentially, is what you know.
Yeah, no, there was no indication from, and I've never asked this question specifically of Northern Health. Is this a different variant, or is this a different virus that's in our community today? But it absolutely is spread in our community in a different way. And, like I say, the way nobody in our community today couldn't say, I don't think, that they don't know somebody who's been impacted, somebody who has been confirmed, who hasn't had a family member impacted or affected, or a worker, friend, or somebody they work with has been impacted. It's everywhere in our community, and like I say, it's been going on for the last 3 or 4 weeks to me, and so it was evident. I didn't need to see data to know that it was in our community in a different way.
Okay. Well, Northern Health has said that they're going to expand and prioritize the AstraZeneca vaccine, the administration of it to people in the community over 40, which is an acceleration over the established timeline. Now, you had previously said you would like to see it open up for everybody, every adult in Dawson Creek. Are you pleased that they did something, or are you hoping that they're still going to do more for you?
Yeah, honestly, I get this whole aspect of virus or vaccination supply as the issue. And, and I started to reach out to them and said, look, anybody who wants and chooses to get the access to this vaccination should have that ability. And I made that request about 3 or 4 weeks ago at anybody over 18, as was being done in other communities across the province that were seeing an increased spread of the virus. And so at exactly that time, then the public confidence around the AstraZeneca raised itself. And so now that put additional pressures on the system of providing access to the vaccination across the province, because now they couldn't administer the AstraZeneca the way they had planned. So that impacted the ability of how they could roll that out into our community. Look, I'm really pleased with the response that I've had from Northern Health and the Ministry of Health of saying, look, we've identified your community, and it rolled out into our pharmacies this week. They've increased the availability of the clinics to the community and increasing the resources to it. But vaccination supply is an issue that still exists, I think, today, and that's kind of a fact of life. So we got to make sure that we support in any way we can the availability of the vaccination to anybody who chooses to get it. And right now, anybody over 40 can get the availability of the vaccination of AstraZeneca to and for themselves at a clinic, at pharmacies. And there's 4 pharmacies in Dawson Creek now that have received that vaccination yesterday: Save on Foods, Pharma Choice, Safeway, as well as Nautilus. So I'm happy to see that happen and increase that availability into our community.
You mentioned a few different sectors that were affected by COVID-19, like outbreaks, for the lack of a better term. The fire department, rather, you said specifically. Is that still ongoing, or is that mostly resolved at this point?
No, the guys are back to work, and the girls, they've recovered, and our shifts are back into operation on those that were impacted, and understand the RCMP also. And our city hall staff, we had some impacted. We had some at public works. So those folks have recovered and are back to work. But it's just evident to me that it was impacting our community. And as I say, that was when it started to impact our RCMP and our fire department, where you start to impact public safety, where this is public safety is a huge deal, as well as the public health. And somebody's house catches on fire, we need to have firefighters available to be able to respond and react and provide that service of safety to our community. That's a big issue, right?
Well, I have to ask, when you get the call or find out that that's happening, how did you and the fire department respond? How were you able to bridge the gap so that the staff could recover, but you had to work with essentially far less staff than you usually or would want to have in the fire department?
Yeah. You just don't pluck a firefighter off the street and say, "Can you come in and get up on the ladder?" There's training and all that. So the guys administered, the chief and our administration really worked together to ensure that we had the adequate coverage and support. And all of the firefighters, they pulled together. They're a tight group of folks, and their obligation to community is strong. And so we had no issues whatsoever in terms of providing coverage that we needed to, while these other folks were at home isolating and recovering from the virus.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but we'll be watching the situation unfold, and hopefully this round of vaccinations helps stem the tide on this outbreak, and you won't be the top of the list anymore very soon. We appreciate you taking some time to chat with us today, Mayor Bumstead.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we also really appreciate the support we've had from the entire region. And I know my colleagues across the region have been very, very supportive of us and ensuring that we all work together to help try and make sure we put this virus in our rearview mirror as soon as possible and get our businesses back open and get the noose loosened on public gatherings so we can get ourselves back to some normalcy and get our communities back doing the things that we all want to do, and that's looking backwards on this virus.
Absolutely. It's Dale Bumstead, the mayor of Dawson Creek. We'll be right back after this on Moose Talks.
Rogers Trucking is family owned and operated, and they've been serving the Peace region for over 60 years. They specialize in hauling contaminated soils, gravel and rock, wood shavings, and wood pellets. Visit them at Airport Road or visit rogerstrucking.ca.
There are still things in that safe. Micro Consulting Sales and Service crack the safe is harder than we thought. We only have until Friday, then the safe is gone. How hard can guessing a number from 1 to 100 be?
Invalid code.
There's the sound to say it's time to start cracking. We don't have much time left to get in and get this money. Can you get into Micro Consulting Sales and Services safe? Crack the Safe is sponsored by Sun Life Financial, Peace Country Toyota, Armor Lubricants, HSC Homeschool Canada, and Brad's Furniture and Appliances. Crack the safe now before it's gone.
If you're looking for hassle-free internet services, call the Peace Region Internet Society today. With coverage throughout most of the Peace, PRIS can get you connected quickly without the hassle of contracts or bundles. Visit PRIS.ca or call 1-800-768-3311 for more information.
Our community first. This is Moose Talks with Dub Craig on Moose FM.
Our thanks again to our guests Bob Zimmer and Dale Bumstead. If you happen to miss this episode and you'd like to see it or hear it again, you could download the podcast now at Energeticcity.ca/Moose Talks. Or the video version of this will be available again shortly on the Moose FM and Energeticcity.ca Facebook pages. That does do it for this episode. The producers of Moose Talks are Adam Rayburn and Trey Lopashinsky. I'm Dub Craig. Be well.
Join us next Friday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Moose Talks, a weekly talk show about Fort St. John and the North Peak.